present our good sheriff, Larry Webb.
How's everybody doing today? Thank y'all for inviting me out. I know it's been a little bit of a talk of the town for the last week. He contacted me and wanted me to come out and talk to y'all a little bit today about the operations run last Wednesday. So first, let me go back a little bit. In 2019, I worked with the state rep and the senator on trying to get the exemptions taken away so we could actually adopt regulations for game rooms. And then in 2020, we adopted those regulations through Commissioner's Court, and we're currently operating. When I took office in 2017, we had 19 game rooms in the county that were operating. By the time we did our regulations, we had 11. Now, as of Wednesday, we have 7. I think folks understand and know my feelings about these establishments. But I've talked with Billy about it, and unfortunately, one of the issues that we come up with is they're actually operating. They can be operated legally if they follow the laws and regulations according to sweepstakes and the raffle bingo laws in the state of Texas. Now, there's some loopholes that need to be closed. It could be done by our legislators, okay? But at this time, that hasn't been done. Now, with that going forward to where we're at, there's always been that underlying issue of legal activity that goes on and things like that. The regulations has actually helped us out tremendously. I've had homicides. They were running 24/7, 7 days a week. I was having aggravated robberies. I've had homicides out on my, drugs, the whole gamut of stuff. And we did put the regulations in. That actually curbed it. The crime started going down. Now, as far as drugs, it's like shooting fish in a barrel, okay? Hunting over a baby field. If you ever pick up the Gilmer Mirror, you usually see my SA unit report on what they're doing out in the county. And a lot of that also deals with some of the game rooms that we get narcotics from. Wednesday was an operation that had been going on with us. It's been going on a little bit longer than when we were involved, but the sheriff's office and us, we were involved for about a year. Okay? We've been working with the Department of Homeland Security for about the last year in preparations for Wednesday. It's not that specifically that the game rooms were the target. The game rooms were just part of it. Okay, it's not the whole thing. We wound up hitting 6 different locations here in Upshur County. And during that time, the game rooms were part of the operation, but while that was going on here, they were simultaneously hitting locations one in Harrison County, several in Gregg County, and several in Morris County. They hit locations in Plano and also Allen, Texas. Okay, so this was a lot larger operation than I think most folks would realize. Due to it being an ongoing investigation currently, there's not a whole lot of information that I can really discuss about things, but that it did include money laundering investigation, conspiracy, and online illegal gambling. Okay, and those are all federal cases that are currently pending. Okay, I do expect indictments coming out of the investigation soon. I don't know if it could take the exact time, but it's happening. So everybody knows the sheriff's office. We're rural county. Okay, I really don't have a lot of resources I do have certain resources, but when it starts coming to large, such a large scale and over jurisdictional issues and things that reach out, I'm gonna use whatever resources I can available to deal with the things that we have to here in Upshur. Okay? And I think Wednesday was a prime example of how you saw that work. It was very elaborate, had a lot of turning wheels, a lot of things that had to come together at the last minute. But it went off without a hitch. Everybody went home safely. We didn't have any issues, injuries or anything like that. And it happened very well. So basically that's kind of what happened Wednesday. So is there any questions?
Sheriff, is that just a far-reaching thing other than, say, plain over here? Does it go all over the state or even
It could.
in the jurisdiction of the
Yes.
state?
Yes.
It's not necessarily local entities that we're talking about, it's greater than that.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you know what's a good game room versus bad? Like, I just see game room, I haven't been in one, it's my one.
You know, and this is the elephant in the room, okay? I took office in 2017, and when I did, I had these people start showing up at my door with algorithms about this high, stack of papers for current computer programs, and was explaining to me why their game is legal, okay? And I'm just a good old country boy looking through pages that's got all these things on it that I have no clue what those mean, okay? I don't have the resources to look at those things. So I have to bend the ear of the district attorney, okay, to figure out how we're gonna deal with these things. As far as a good game room or a bad game room, people know how I feel about it. To me, it's gambling, okay? Now, what I think it is and what can be proved in court is two different issues, okay? But until we get the loopholes closed in these things, then that's what we have to deal with, okay? It's just not as clear cut and black and white as most people think it is. Okay? So until we get that happening, I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Okay, that we do have game rooms that are still functioning in the county. They work under our permits. But we know who they are, we know who they work, you know, we know the employees, we know the games, we know everything about the locations of it. Okay, in the past, we had no clue of any of that stuff. Now, when we got involved in the investigation, the federal investigation that's going on, of course, that's when they came to us. This is what we found, all this good stuff. That came up to what we did Wednesday.
Sheriff, you think the 7 game rooms that are here are, until some matter, they operate within the law now?
Our regulations do not specify. It specifically says in our regulation that you're not to break the law. This does not legalize gambling. This does not legalize anything other than that they're being able to operate. Okay, they say it's legal. Okay, there's an argument there. Okay, and the thing is until we get these loopholes closed, I mean, how can I say it's not? Okay, when you have somebody that comes in with a stack of papers about that hall. Says this is how you do it, because you go to the location, you can play without a purchase. Everybody remembers when everybody played Monopoly at Whataburger, okay? You could do the sweepstakes, right? You didn't have to do the purchase. You could actually go up and ask for them, they'd tell you one or something like that. It's the same way at the game, okay? You can actually go in and play for free. Okay, then if you want to have another chance for whatever, usually they have some kind of online game or online, like iTunes or something like that. They'll give you some more chances. Or you donate somewhere, okay? Or you donate to a nonprofit or something like that, and they'll give you some more chances, okay? And then each game, the way it's explained to me, is it starts January and runs through December, Okay, and during that time, this is how much is paid out. This is not paid out. They're winning the sweepstakes, so you gotta, there's a whole verbiage that goes along with this establishment also. You're redeeming your pride. You're not being paid out, you're just redeeming your pride. So there's a big play of words and things like that also. Okay, so, and then once they do that, they start another game. Okay, then they do it over again the following year. Okay, so it's kind of those things. My advice is don't go. Just don't go.
Can you make a law where you have a good that it says game room?
It does say.
Because I went to Miss Edda's because I thought it was a kitchen.
Which one?
Miss Edda's,
Rich.
and the one in Pritchett, we thought it was like home cooked meal. So we went there and we were surprised it was not. And then again, at not 7 points,
Oh, if
1844
I can have my guy go back around, and look at the location. But if I'm almost certain they actually have to have game room written on the door of the entrance that's about that high. Was
We
it
may
not
not be
there?
observant, we just thought it was gonna be kitchen, like home cooked meal, and then one time we thought it was a Cajun restaurant, so
Yeah.
it was like going into Cheers, everybody stopped. 3
Right.
days of smoke, so
Right.
it was good times.
But we do have those where they actually have to have game room across the door,
Okay.
and those kind of things. With the regulations, I know with Gilmer, after we shortly adopted ours, I think y'all came along with the ones that pretty much coincide with the same thing ours said, to handle it. Yes, sir.
Are the game rooms licensed to a particular individual? Or how is that, how do you know? I mean,
They're owned by an individual and or corporation.
So when you go in like, last
We
week,
know who those are.
so the proprietor would not necessarily be there when you went.
No.
So then you go to his home or you track him down or what do you do?
Yes, we paid a visit to everybody last Wednesday.
So did you make them arrest and bring them in and arraign them?
No, this is actually a federal case, and federal guys operate a little bit different than we do, okay? There were no arrests made last Wednesday, but indictments were pending, so those,
Federal indictments.
yes. That's my understanding.
They seized the equipment.
Yes. And I can't really go into it because I wasn't there when they seized everything, but my understanding is that, yes, they seized the equipment inside, and truckloads of evidence was leaving Upshur County. And when I say truckloads, I mean, they were boxed trucks, loads of it leaving.
And what was in those boxes? What did they have in the boxes?
I don't know, I wasn't there when they did that. I'm pretty sure that they were collecting evidence for the case, so whatever they decided was evidence needed in their case, they would have taken it. They would have taken it.
Upshur County's not taking care of all these stores in the federal.
Yes, they are. No, we're not storing all that stuff.
We have some much of the city still got much.
Yes. But, you know, I wish I could be a little bit more in depth in what happened, but, just because of the investigations continuing on, I can't say too much about it.
Well, anyway, Sheriff, all that stuff they seized, I don't know what it was, we don't know what it was, but I'll tell you where it's going. It's going in the trash can, because see, I've been losing my favorite pocket knife to those Homeland Security guys ever since 15 years. And I go there, I forgot to put them, and they take my pocket knife, and I say, that's my favorite pocket knife, just give it to someone. No, it's going in the trash can, I can't give it to anybody.
Right, yeah.
I only laughed because I knew I had the same thing happen to me.
Right. Yes, sir.
What about these game rooms that, I don't guess they're actually game rooms, where you play it on your phone and you go by and pick up your winnings?
Yes, sir.
What's the difference in that and the game rooms that were seized?
There is not one, really, other than the game rooms is a specific location. Now, as we all know, technology gets to jump ahead of law enforcement way before we ever can figure out how to deal with a certain deal, an issue, which is online gambling, what you're talking about, cash apps and things like that you can do, those kind of things. You know, and the question that I always raise is, how do I deal with that? I mean, I've got 17 patrol deputies and 7 investigators, and then I've got a jail with jail staff, and now I've got to try to figure out a way to deal with the online gambling issues that are coming into the county. You know, so where do I get those resources from? You know, that's one of the things that you know, the citizens, just like when I talked to them about this, that Wednesday morning and Tuesday before when we had the briefing, you know, I told them, I said, look, I said, my citizens in Upshur County don't want to know what's going on. I'm not the kind of person that just hangs off in the office and keeps the door shut and not talk to anybody. I said, they're going to be calling, they're going to want to know what's happening, and I'm going to have to tell them something. And a good thing was that they worked with me on doing a press release, and we came together and we agreed on this and said this is what we're going to push out, and we did. So now that folks kind of know, but then it just starts raising a whole bunch of other questions of how things are operating and doing those things. You know, I wish I could shut one things down, you know, shut them all down. Personally, that's me. But as we all know, and I always tell people that I do uphold the Constitution. People are given due process. Okay, they are protected by the Constitution, even though we do have criminal activity and things like that. Even the criminals are protected by the Constitution. So we have to go about it. As far as law enforcement and the government, we have to go about it a different way, other than just with criminals. Criminals don't care about the Constitution. They're going to do what they want, even how they want to do it, right? But if we don't follow the rules and due process and all those good things that the Constitution says, then we lose cases and people walk, okay? So we actually have to follow those rules and guidelines in the Constitution to make solid cases that they can go forward and prosecute, so we can get convictions on certain things. And those are and that's what we have to do. Yes,
Have they
ma'am.
been beneficial in that you've been able to serve a lot of warrants? I mean, they kind of collect the bad guys, and you can park outside of them, and you can serve a lot of warrants that you have outstanding and stuff? Or?
Well, yes, actually going out and using your outside resources is a good tool. If you remember, when too many years ago, I think it's a couple of years ago, we had a meth ring here in Upshur County that we actually did, and that was done with our DEA guys. Those in the ATF actually assisted on those cases, okay, to work that, and we were able to get some a meth ring out of Upshur County by doing that, okay. And Wednesday was another example of being able to use your resources and work with other agencies to get things done here in our county to benefit our citizens, and that's what we did Wednesday. So, and it worked out well. Yes, ma'am.
So all of them that y'all, there you go, with 2 of them, are all of those bad? I mean, all of those are
Okay,
illegal?
so let me explain it to you a little bit, because the folks are getting the game rooms and it's a game room bust, okay? It wasn't a game room bust, okay? What it was a federal investigation involving these individuals, okay? In that investigation, the seizure of their property, the search of their property was part of that investigation. They happened to own 4 game rooms and other game rooms in other counties. Okay, So it just wasn't dealing with just the game rooms as per se, as the investigation was dealing with the individuals. Okay? Does that make a little bit more sense now? Okay? Instead of just saying it was a game room operation, it was actually an investigation dealing with certain individuals for what they were doing. And then it involved their property, their business, and their property, okay? And other establishments.
Part of which was a game room.
Yes, part of which were the game rooms, which was part of the business, okay? So that's kind of how you explain that. So the overall investigation was targeting co-conspirators in money laundering, online illegal gambling, and conspiracy case. Okay? That's what that was. And it just so happened they owned 4 game rooms.
So game rooms are open.
Yes, those 4 game rooms
Yeah.
will close down and will more than likely never open again. I'm very, I am very, very afraid to tell you the truth.
What percentage of illegal activities other than gambling, which I bring is illegal, is coming from those particular game rooms?
Our biggest thing, once we got the regulations set in, and they weren't going 24/7, our biggest issue with the game rooms was just the narcotics that was showing up. That was a normal place for people to meet, transactions take place and stuff like that, which my guys, they were just having a field day with that, because I mean, they were, case after case after case after case, and that's actually, and that's pretty much it. I mean, once we got the game room regulations in place, the crime rate pretty much dropped to considerable from what they were before we had the regulations. And that's what it's all about. You gotta look for in the bigger picture of things of how to, protect the citizens and the public's safety and all that kind of things that are concerns for the law enforcement agencies. And what's the best way of dealing with the issue that you have to have that outcome? And that's kind of where we were at. And it's worked out real well. I think it's worked out great, honestly, to tell you the truth.
Yeah, they have.
Yes, sir.
2 other little questions. You know about how many game rooms there are in this county, roughly?
There are 7.
About 7?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, these ones are called for, still 7, I guess.
There's 7.
And then other counties, have you heard anybody say if these game rooms were in every county in Texas or?
They are. Every county in the state of Texas is big.
Are they always proactive as Upshur County?
Yes.
But it's mostly the legislature's handling that.
Yeah. Yes.
So then that means, I guess, that as far as you know, no counties have tried to legislate them out of the county or tried to shut them all down?
No, because what was so funny, and this is what I explained to people. How do you explain to people something that's illegal, that they believe is illegal? But then the state has made a regulation that you can actually adopt to regulate it. Have you ever thought about it that way? Because in the business code, 231 of the Texas Business Code is the regulations that says game room regulations. It's something to think about, So how do you say it's illegal, but you got a statute that says that you can regulate? Kind of makes you scratch your head, right? And you look at a legislator and go, what was you thinking? Okay? Because we said that before, right?
Right.
So, and that's what dumbfounded me when I started trying to figure out how to deal with these locations in an appropriate way. That was a good outcome for everybody. I started looking, and all of a sudden I said, game room regulations. But before we could adopt them, you had to get the exceptions taken away. If you wasn't on the border of a state that had gambling, okay, you could adopt it. If you had a population of like 4 million, you could adopt the regulations. If you was on the Gulf Coast, or next to the border of Mexico, those kind of things, you could adopt the regulation. No other county in the state of Texas could adopt them if they didn't meet those exceptions. So what we did in 2019 is I started beating on the door. At that time it was Jay Dean and Senator Hughes. And I said, look, we have this regulation here. We're having issues with these locations. I want to adopt them, but I can't because I don't meet the exception. Okay, I need those exceptions gone. I want to adopt it. So that legislative session, they completely took the exceptions away, and now every county in the state of Texas could adopt them, and they started adopting them like wildfire. And the ones that we have are pretty much the clone of every other county that's adopted these regulations also. Because Harrison County had their regulations way before we ever did, but they're on the border of Louisiana. Okay? So, we pulled theirs, we pulled some from Victoria, we pulled some others and put it together to fit us. And then I worked with Billy Bird, the DA, and Judge Tefteller, and we got the regulations compiled and put together, and then we pushed it through Commissioner's Court and had it. Of course, when we pushed the regs through Commissioner's Court, if y'all were there, it was packed. Okay? All the game owners were there. Why? Because they didn't want it to happen, right?
Some players were there.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Players were there too, So, because it talks about the times, it talks about, the times they can operate, where they have to be in the county, close to residents and things like that. One of the things that we had to do was how are we going to grandfather certain in, so you didn't get a county into a lawsuit because now we're telling people what they can do with their property. Okay? So there's just a lot of things, a lot of balls and wheels that we're moving in this thing that we had to do. So. But, my commitment to y'all is this. If I feel that there's illegal activity going on, I'm gonna take a look at it. If I can't look at it, I got a friend that can. Okay? If I don't have the resources to do it, I got somebody that I can tap on the shoulder and say, hey, I need a little help. And I think you've seen that over the last several years that with the two operations that I'm specifically talking about, and that's how it's happened. Okay? So it's a good thing. Okay? In my opinion, what happened Wednesday was a great operation, and we took care of something.
When you talk about these operations like this isn't something that last week y'all decided to do it. This started a year ago, or 2 years ago, or whatever.
The narcotics investigation that I'm talking about spanned for almost 2 years for that investigation. This investigation has, it's my understanding, has gone on longer than a year, but it showed up in our lap a year ago. Okay, so when that happened, then of course we're involved with this. So, and we've been working on this case for about a year.
Larry, is there any truth in the fact that they have some human trafficking going on as well?
I don't know. That's one thing when you work with the feds. It's kind of, and I'm going to be funny. It's kind of like playing a poker game. They don't show you all their cards. Okay, they show you just enough to get you in the game, and then they don't show you the whole deck. Okay, I honestly couldn't answer that question because I don't know where the investigation is going to. Anything else? No. All right. Well, thank y'all for letting me come. I enjoyed it. Thank y'all.
Sheriff, I want to say, I guess probably everybody in this room has heard me say probably many times that I consider living in Gilmer, Texas, one of the greatest places on planet Earth. And because of the people here and one of the reasons I joined Rotary is because as I go around the community, the people that are here are everywhere. And I want to say, what a great blessing it is, no matter where I go in the county, no matter good times, bad times, hard conversation, celebration, I see you there, and you're available, and out helping making this a lot greater place to live, and I appreciate you very much.
Thank you.